Hello, it's Piggy did another video. Just Brexit really. I'm just looking at the solution for it, and it's quite simple. If you've got people that disagree over a whole deal, then you find things that they can agree on. So people wanted there to be some control systems when it comes on immigration. We do control our borders, they are supposedly meant to be UK borders. And so simply implementing a visa system, that's it. It doesn't have to change everything at once. So that's something they could agree on, and it could get sorted out in a month, you know. Just all it happens is people that are coming into the country, they would simply have to fill in a process to come in. You know, why they're coming here, what their intentions are, you know, that they pay taxes and things like that. It's quite simple. It doesn't have to be a complicated process. Like if I went to Australia or whatever, they just got to be bona fide while they're coming here. People that already live here or are working here for a period of time, because when the day it's implemented is the day it starts. You don't backtrack, because if you wanted to do that, we could go back 100 years, and I think most of us have got kicked out of the country because at some point one of our relatives would have been an immigrant from Europe or somewhere. It's not an anti-European stance to have some control systems in place, and if you're a part of a club or a group, if you can't walk away from it or separate yourself from it, you never really chose to be in it in the first place. You're forced into it. That's what's happened, and that's demonstrated. It's a counter democracy. It doesn't have that impact whereby you can choose to be a part of something, vote to be a part of something. I mean, it was no different than if you look at the way that the Nazis grew up and in their structure, is that people agreed on some principles and they got involved, and then they got trapped in the bubble. You know, they wanted change, they were fed up with poverty in their country. This party came along and promised change and to offer change for them, and they said, great, we need someone to stand up for our rights because no one else has. And so what happened is people got on the back of it, and it built momentum up, and it went beyond their control. So, I mean, there were people that walked away from some of the bigger plans, but then there was also investment that came in. It didn't just turn up this party with radical beliefs and then everyone said, yeah, that's a great idea. It needed money to continue moving forward, and as a result it attracted people that wanted to cause instability in Europe, and therefore that's why it grew in a certain way. Where the funding was cut was where, instead of going AWOL at Russia, and that was the main thing. It was building this war machine up, and then it was a case of destroying Russia with it, I guess, or breaking it up in some way. But what happened is it just expanded to Europe, and potentially it would have just gone into to Britain. America weren't going to get involved. It started to went a kibosh, and they just changed the plan. If it were, no, we can't have this thing. It's going to destroy Europe, and we haven't achieved our objective with Russia, and so now we're going to pull the plug. And that's what happened. They pulled the plug, and they said, right, well, we've invested the money into these guys, and then you had the Project Paperclip. So we want some of the investment back, and we can take what we've learned from it. Because they always say that we don't learn from our lessons. They do. They learn how to be better baddies. That's what it works as. It's not a case of, it's not a case of trying to be peaceful. There's no desire in peace. There's no profit in peace. In order for a peace to exist, you need a war. You need a conflict. It's a rise and a fall. If you don't have the rise, how can you fall? And when you fall, how can you rise? So you need to have this pattern put in there. And by creating this rift, and you control the outcome of it, you then become the controller, and you're able to influence the outcome. This is why you'd fund both sides of the war, because you'd want to benefit from it, both sides. And the purpose of being wrapped up in Europe, it makes us very easier to control. If you've got the policies getting pumped out by a place that from people that have never visited the UK, and they don't know how the policy fits in. They're rolling it out for the country. Certain things you can do, EU standards, trading across the borders, all these sorts of things. All these control systems that require taxation and payment and austerity payments and loans and things like that, and you must donate so much to go towards the military, and we're going to have a NATO military, and this NATO is going to wander around pressurising countries in different ways, and when there is stability, we're going to walk in and we're going to make sure that we put our own stability in place. There's more going on than simply this idealistic, let's all be peaceful, let's be all friends. It doesn't work like that. It never has done, it never will do. And anybody who believes in that kind of stuff needs to wake up. It's the la-di-da reality of painting a picture on top of something. And it's not helping us, people that have just caught up in the mechanism. It's usually young people. They don't know the history so well because they never lived it, but they know the history that they're taught, which is an indoctrinated view of the universe or the world, and then they're told to follow it. They're not told to self-discover, they're told to follow the laid out, the imprint, the control system that's laid out. You know, science is this, science that. I was very aware of this when I was younger, like biology. You could learn biology, but there'd be sort of this, there'd be these barriers, like you couldn't learn different sciences, or you could have an integrated science, but you only learn the basics of all of them. You couldn't sort of merge things. And I was always wondering, like, why do humans, for instance, what is the physics of the body? Not like the kinetic forces, but how does it connect at a deeper level? How does biology go into physics? Goes into the subatomic level, because it's not like it's an accident, but that's what they want you to believe. Oh, it just happened that way. It happened that way. It's like DNA. Oh, it's just DNA. Don't even worry about that. So it just takes the mystery out of everything, and it has to be into this university's control structures. I'm getting tired now. And it's a bit like diversity versus it's about a control system and dying and dividing and division. It has nothing to do with a more of there's a lot of police around, better keep a low profile. Yeah. Must have heard my talk. They're going to make sure I've got diversity under control, but it should be more that we should be not celebrating division by slapping a word in place of it, which divides people and makes them, segregates them, and then forces them to believe in the same stuff other people do, in fear of being indifferent, rather than just appreciate what you are and then see the commonality. It's you need to sort of unify people, not diversify. Understand there's range. What the fuck are you on? Like a weirdo. It's like somebody going to derail me in his car. Must be out to get me. The paranoia. So yeah, I mean, it's a bit like I was told in the past about. They talked about ethnicity and diversity and cultural awareness and how would you get more involved in that and so on. But there wasn't really an answer. You just ask someone. It's not rocket science. You don't have to say, right, we'll have to learn everything about a culture. Yeah, you don't have to read everything about a culture and then start implement it on behalf of someone. Simply ask them. They're going to vary in their version of it. Like people that say they're Christians, so they got some version of the ethos, but they're not embracing the other stuff to do with religion, which is great. It means they've got a deeper appreciation or understanding that they can do what they like. So it's finding the version of you, the deeper version. Oh my God. And drawing from your dreams, finding your true self, you know, it's like going back to science. It's about if you can experiment and study yourself. It's like the alchemy. When you take something, you'll be able to make something from it. You can. It's like cooking. You know, it goes into these kinds of things. You've got to have a hands-on approach, not just run off structures all the time. You know, it's nice when you can have a perfect recipe, but can you have your own? That's the thing. And you know, what's the smaller picture, maybe, not the bigger picture. So I think going back to the Brexit, it's quite simple. Like I say, break down the puzzle and then sort the pieces out and then get people to agree on the pieces and then fix it together. It's a mapping exercise. It's like policies and procedures. You don't suddenly roll out something, the whole book at once. You put things in place and then act and you develop it and so on. But there's fixed points that are you can basically we can manipulate to some degree, or it's got a certain leverage to it. You know, there's like human rights, for instance, how that applies to things. That you have the right to this, right to that, but then it also requires you to take certain responsibilities. If you neglect them responsibilities, then are you really using your human rights? You know, like if you know better or you're educated at a certain level, you're expected to act in that sort of bubble or behaviour. It's like some people, if they chuck litter on the ground, if they know there's a way to process rubbish, then they're responsible for their litter, and there's no excuse for their behaviour because they're educated citizens. You have the human rights. There's no right to abuse where you live, but if you choose to, then you take responsibility for that action. So it's quite straightforward in that kind of working. So anything else about the Brexit? Yeah, it just goes round and round. People are paid to argue, and they go about censorship and the working classes and a class system and so on. Well, the resistance is coming from a class system. It's a bunch of MPs. They don't represent people that are not employed, do they? They get paid for their role. They don't represent certain sections of the community. They might have ethnic backgrounds, but even then, they're people that are trying to act like each other. They all talk like this, and they're all quite posh and quite upper class and stuff like that. They haven't got sort of some rough accent. They all go, oh yes, we're going to go to the pub afterwards and have a little chat about that, and oh yes, these Brexit people, I don't know. And now I'm the Brexit officer, and I'm the Brexit secretary, and I'm the Brexit, and all these other things. They're making jobs for themselves, and they don't represent the quorum of society. People that took on a job that no one had else had an interest in have to be into politics, and politics only represent this core group at the top. Somebody wants to take it to a point where they want to be a leader, and they found that they can talk, or they like to argue, and they like the attention. So there's certain types of people that are drawn to politics, and they don't get bored of themselves, and so they just keep talking about stuff. And it doesn't really go like me talking now in this video, except well, he likes talking about himself, doesn't he? Maybe he's a politician. Yeah, but it's just the same. It's the same skill set, really. You know, if you like communicating and stuff, you can be great as an MP. And then you can just follow the money. Somebody says, well, look, we don't want you to agree on this policy, and we're going to be funding your party for the next so many years. So could you actually make this more difficult, the process? And there probably is people going to lose out, MPs and so on, if it goes through. And you can see it in their faces. They're like, oh, I'm going to resign my position because I'm so upset over this deal and stuff. And I think, so, you know, if I left my job over the Brexit, nobody would give a fuck. That's the truth. Nobody would care what I do. If I jumped off a cliff tomorrow, sure, some people would go, well, that's a sad thing for that guy to do that. He was a nice bloke. He was very helpful or whatever. Yeah, some people would remember me. Some people wouldn't. They'd think I'm still alive, probably. They wouldn't be in touch with me. but ultimately it wouldn't really matter too much. So I think people playing these popularity games. Oh yeah, there's something else I was looking at as well, something to do with the hypergamy, and see, some people, well, maybe probably, I think guys want to be popular as well, but women in popularity is very important, and I think it gives the person more choice over who they want as friends. And there's the reverse end of it, as being depopulated in not depopulation, but being popular, I guess. And that you'd be pulled out of, if somebody thinks you're a bit different, a bit weird, they might either like that because they might associate themselves as different in some way, or what they might do is turn around and say, well, I'm going to remove that from my group of friends. And they got this quite thing, they're quite cold like that. I think guys feel that they can be your friend forever, in the same way they believe in love's eternal, or they might have these other sort of strong commitments they like to, because they believe in family, they believe in structure, they believe they're builders, they're providers, they believe they're capable of doing these things. Only if someone's been hit from a certain age, they've been whacked with you're not good enough and stuff, they built up some resistance to that, or they're a bit anti this or anti that. But fundamentally they want to do simple stuff all guys want to do, but they think very different, and they're willing to take up more crap. I mean, there's some people you cut out your life because they're causing you harm, but you might tolerate more harm than you should do, because most guys take the mickey out of each other and stuff like that. It's not really a big deal. But there's a lot of backbiting with women that are a bit more cutthroat, and it's just an observation. It's an observation from working in an office. I'd say that's my experience, how they were friends, and then they'd fall out of each other and all sorts of things really quickly. Like I remember hearing this from this girl, and basically she talked to somebody else's boyfriend on Facebook, and she flipped out like, "What are you talking to my boyfriend?" sort of thing, and that's it. Gone. But I don't know if guys worry so much about things like that. As long as they're not physical, doesn't matter. Anyway, it's a big sign off, and speak to you soon.